Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from Mr. Anonymous, and here's what he has to say. Hi Sandman, there's been a disconcerting amount of MGTOW hate from the MRA/MRM community about MGTOW. Yes, there's a segment that is woman-hating MGTOWs, and rightfully so, but the majority of MGTOWs is not a woman-hating ideology. The MGTOW haters like to categorize MGTOW as the same as feminism. Specifically third-wave feminists, they hate all men and boys, and it seems that the MRA/MRM needs a refresher on what real MGTOW is all about, because they seem to think that we're just a woman-hating group of men, which from the start it has never been. On a side note, I have two songs that I'd like you to review. Well, Mr. Anonymous, thanks for your donation as well as your topic request. I'll briefly review the songs towards the end of this video, but right now let me get on with discussing the real MGTOW versus the way that the MRM and mainstream describes us. The first link in the description is to a MGTOW 101 repost of a Stefan Molyneux chat, with the woman discussing how MGTOW is just as bad as feminism. She says she watched some MGTOW 101 and turd-flinging monkey videos, and now believes that men going their own way are basically woman haters, and she supports what the men's rights movement is doing. Of course, women in general in the men's rights movement are trying to categorize MGTOW as different and just like feminism. The men's rights movement is competing with us for the same donations and eyeballs when it comes to YouTube. And as for women, they would much rather support the MRA instead of MGTOW, because the women have finally figured out that the men's rights movement is no real threat at all because the men in it are public figures and therefore can be easily subverted and turned into simps for the cause of women. Women want men to be their golden parachute, and that disappears if suddenly men go their own way. The anti-feminist community is much larger on YouTube, so the idea is to use them as a platform to convince skeptics and people on the fence to choose the MRA instead of MGTOW. Women in MRAs are smart in doing this because they'll actually be slowing down the exodus of men, leaving their groups and heading towards MGTOW, but that's all they're doing. I first started becoming aware of men's issues through Paul Elam, Girl Writes What, as well as Stardust. Elam and Girl Writes What were the gateway drugs before I went more hardcore with regards to content. In the Stefan Molyneux video I included down below, the woman calling into Stefan probably wanted his sympathy, and she wanted him to agree with the observations that she made about those so-called woman-hating MGTOW channels out there. But it's great how he ended up putting her in her place in front of everyone and saying that men going their own way are justified for the way that we feel about women. I think he partially understands that his MGTOW audience is probably larger than his MRA audience, but I also believe he understands female nature really well. Unfortunately, MRAs don't need a refresher in MGTOW because they understand what it is. They know that it represents the truth and that men that are able to live independently from the constant desire for female approval and attention are in a much more advantageous position. I believe they're jealous of us because we don't need constant female validation. Remember that a lot of MRAs are guys well into the second half of their lives, and they've been receiving female validation for roughly 20 to 30 plus years, so it's difficult if not impossible for them to function without that as a crutch in their lives. They just don't know how the younger guys are able to just walk away, and it scares them, so they try to shame us back to the plantation. Because obviously misery loves company, and for most of them the women in their generation weren't as horrendous as the ones that we're experiencing today. There's no point in giving them a refresher about what we're all about because there's no way for them to comprehend our point of view. It's a waste of energy, and even if they did listen to what we actually have to say, they would still go out and try to change the laws instead of just watching things burn. Women like the one calling into Stefan are supportive of the MRM because the MRM is about traditionalism and going back to the fantasy world where men and women once got along together. Women like this want men to believe in the fantasy again. It's hard to believe that she thinks that turd-flinging monkeys videos are misogynistic. I think her attempt was just to smear his good name as well as MGTOW 101s, so that other men don't actually start listening to them as well. The idea is to broadcast to the hundreds of thousands of men out there in Stefan's audience that MGTOW is bad, so they will actually take her word for it on the subject. Luckily for us though, Stefan gave her a verbal ass-ripping worse than any man could get in a prison for her views. Real MGTOW is about saving your money, enjoying your free time, and doing the things that you want to do, as well as understanding that turning yourself into a utility for a woman is bad for your mental and physical health, regardless of how many studies there are saying that married men live longer. Men don't need female supervision and guidance to civilize ourselves, because we're the ones that created civilization in the first place. For most women, civilizing a man means breaking him into a plow horse and getting him to provide and protect for her brood. It's a waste of time trying to convince many of the MRAs to join our cause. Some of the younger ones like Karen Strawn, Feminism LOL, as well as John the Other, being in their early 40s, saw the light and started supporting MGTOW. But you're not going to get 50 or 60-year-old men with male mother need issues that are basically going to stop trying to change the laws. Guys like Vention MGTOW got out 15 to 20 years ago, while the getting was still good. So that's why he's still going his own way right now. The older guys in the MRM need to look at his example and see that we aren't woman haters. We are women understanders, if that's even a word. We know that the people in society that you can't criticize are actually your overlords, so if you can't say anything negative about women, even if it's true, then that tells you who your masters are. We are not woman haters, we are actually lovers of freedom. We value our own independence and free time that a woman doesn't appreciate us for with regards to who we really are. I'm sure a large chunk of men going their own way would get married if it actually was in 1873 and there were no retirement schemes and our kids were basically our only pension system. You could also have kept women in check back then as well. But it's not the 19th century, but instead the 21st. And just because a man doesn't choose to behave like a man did 2 centuries ago does not actually make him a woman hater. Women are not naive, they know that actually men don't really hate them, and that given the chance some of us would actually swim with the sharks once again, but they also know that if they actually project to other men out there, as well as other women, that MGTOW is a hate movement, then we'll come under attack. They're trying to paint a giant target on our backs, but it's simply not working, because we're counteracting that by staying anonymous and by not actually having a central leadership system. We are peer-to-peer, and that's why we can't be stopped. Stopping us is like trying to stop torrents. The record companies and movie studios had only been mildly successful because they send out cease and desist notices to individuals for pirating music and movies. But there's no way to get us to cease and desist, short of possibly doxing us. They can shit on our golden truth all they like, but at the end of the day, the gold doesn't decay and tarnish, and it always shines on through the darkness. As for the majority of women in the MRM, they are fake supporters and just want to keep men fighting a fight that they can't win, as well as wasting energy and hope on a pointless effort. Well, it's not completely pointless because many men that find the men's rights movement eventually also find MGTOW. So maybe in some ways it's actually good after all. But I don't think the majority of female supporters are bright enough to have figured that angle out by now. We're also getting many prominent anti-feminists attacking us, including most recently Black Pigeon Speaks. He did an anti-pornography video and equated porn and cancer with MGTOW, and he didn't even elaborate fully. I guess he just wants men to stay away from MGTOW and breed so that the whites in Europe don't go extinct. That and the fact that many anti-feminists probably see the rapid growth in MGTOW and the number of channels, and it probably scares them that they might actually be losing some of their audience as well. Anyways, now I want to discuss the songs that you sent me, Mr. Anonymous. The first 2 links are to 2 videos for the same song called Cotton Eye Joe from the Rednex. This song was written in the late 1990s and it's from Europe, and I remember listening to it on my imported dance music compilations. To be honest, I never actually sat down and looked at the lyrics before at all. All I remember is there was a bunch of Northern Europeans pretending to be Southern rednecks in the United States, probably so they could sell their song into North American markets and become successful here as well. And I still hear their song played at clubs, bar mitzvahs, and weddings. So the lyrics go something like this, and I quote, "If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd be married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?" Unquote. That repeats about 6 times, and it's basically sung by a dude. The second part is sung by a woman, and here are the words, and I quote, "He brought disaster wherever he went, the hearts of girls was to hell broken sent. They all ran away so nobody knew, and left only men 'cause of Cotton Eye Joe." Unquote. So from these 2 verses we hear that this Cotton Eye Joe character shows up and probably breaks the hearts of women, and leaves or basically spreads the knowledge of female nature. You take your pick as to which one of those 2 messages you want to believe. But for the second verse, we can tell that the woman singing it says that he left women's hearts broken. So from that, I can more conclusively say that Cotton Eye Joe is some sort of alpha Euro redneck that seems to show up and break the hearts of women in his overalls, bare feet, and a straw hat. And then he destroys the relationships of all the people in the country karaoke bars because all the women try to monkey branch to him. But it's not very realistic to assume that all the girls would just leave if he was there. In fact, if such a super male country bumpkin existed, he would probably draw in more and more women. But the whole premise is absolutely ridiculous. My favorite part was the woman riding the mechanical bull in one of the videos. That's the only part of this music video that's any good. The second song you sent me is also from the Rednex, and it's called The Way I Mate. This song, however, is clearly less than a hit, and the good old Rednex never actually wrote another hit again. I'm afraid that they ended as one-hit wonders. Well, at least they probably got to play the casino circuit like Casey and the Sunshine Band. But with regards to lyrics in this song, the woman, when she sings, says that when she mates, she calls a hubby, which probably means that she runs off and tries to steal some other woman's husband because the man has already been proven as being quality, so it's easier for a woman to steal another woman's man than find a guy of her own. I've talked about this before in previous videos. The only other part of this song that's worth any mentioning is this one, and I quote, "Bushes are moving around, all the beavers are having fun. They're playing with their guns." This is just a fancy play on words because obviously bushes and beavers are a way to say pussy without actually saying it so they can get some radio play. And the part about playing with their guns should pretty much be obvious by now. This music video was much higher quality with regards to production values because I guess the Rednex probably thought that they would have another hit on their hands. This band is very similar to the band Aqua from around the same time period with regards to a bunch of guys making dance music with a gimmick surrounding one hot girl that basically could sing somewhat. That was the formula back then for European group bands. Bands like this were all about loud energy-packed music for clubs, which were already very sexual environments. It kind of reminds me of the days when I used to hang around in all-ages clubs where there were plenty of 20-year-olds and 30-year-old guys basically trying to get together with 14-year-old girls. Because 14 was the age of consent in Canada up until very recently. Girls couldn't make porn until they were 18 years of age, but they could have sex at the age of 14. How crazy was that? Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Mr. Anonymous, for your donation as well as your topic. Also, don't forget to give me a thumbs up on the like button and check out the MGTOW mystery link down below as well. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the female MRAs away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.